La Masia has just unleashed its newest prodigy. He leaves defenders grasping at thin air. They completely dropped their guard, and he made them pay. This kid, Bernal, is single-handedly breathing life back into Barcelona. Cancelo whips in an absolute beauty of a cross, and boom, a flawless finishing touch. Barca might actually pull this off. What an absolute masterclass of a delivery, meeting Bernal right on the money at the back post. That makes 2 for the evening. An absolute rocket of a strike. Finding the back of the net is not even in his primary job description. But Marc Bernal is out here treating opposing goalkeepers like target practice. A superstar is officially born under the bright lights of Camp Nou. He channels the sheer brilliance of a prime Sergio Busquets, yet this midfield maestro just buried 4 goals in his last 4 outings. Let us be brutally honest, the kid is an absolute monster on the pitch. Scouts pegged him as a traditional number 6, but he effortlessly slides into the 8 or 10 role. Honestly, you could start him up top, and he would outshine Ferran Torres any day of the week. During his youth academy days, Bernal casually smashed in 280 goals across 286 matches. That is virtually a guaranteed goal every single time he laced up his cleats. You expect to see that kind of lethal production from a world-class center forward, not a guy anchoring the center of the park. But his game is about so much more than just scoring. Standing at a towering 6'4", Bernal is quite literally looking Erling Haaland right in the eye. His physical presence is downright intimidating, sure. At first glance, he might look a bit lean, but try battling him for possession, and you will quickly realize he possesses superhuman core strength. Dispossessing him? Nearly impossible. He dances on the ball with total swagger, and the moment he spots an opening, he will pull the trigger without a second thought. Dive into his early highlight reels, and you will witness a kid unloading pure artillery from every conceivable spot on the field. Defying physics from the most ridiculous angles, he shields the rock effortlessly, dominates the aerial battles, and possesses a downright lethal radar for finding the back of the net. The coaching staff over at La Masia could not stop raving about his freakish predator instincts inside the penalty box. He echoes Thomas Muller with his supernatural ability to materialize exactly where the space opens up. It is literally like watching a prime Sergio Busquets with a burning desire to execute the goalkeeper. When they clashed with Atletico, Bernal sparked significantly more terror in the attacking third than seasoned forwards like Farman, Daniel Olmo, and Ferran Torres. The very guys paid specifically to generate offense. His chemistry with the wide men is pure magic, but his telepathic connection with Pedri is what truly breaks defenses in half. It is no coincidence that Hansi Flick locked in Pedri and Bernal is starting a double pivot last campaign. Mark my words, this kid is destined to become the cornerstone of Barcelona's entire franchise. We are witnessing a generational talent unfold. What makes this explosive rise even more jaw-dropping, he was completely sidelined for over 12 months, dealing with a catastrophic injury. Yet, he stepped back onto the grass moving like he never missed a beat. At barely 18 years of age, he is already proving to be a highly elusive midfield unicorn, cementing La Masia's legendary pipeline. The casuals write him off as just another face in the youth system, but they are dead wrong. The whisper network inside the locker room speaks about him with a level of reverence completely unheard of for typical academy graduates. For years, the front office and training staff quietly labeled Bernal as the most breathtaking prospect of this era. He is, without a doubt, the Lamine Yamal of the center pitch. If you are not tuning into Barca games every week, that might sound like wild hyperbole, but the moment you actually study his tape, you immediately buy into the hype. He injects an unbreakable steel into Barcelona's engine room. The kid is completely immune to high-pressure traps and operates with a supercomputer brain when dictating the play. Hallmark traits of the absolute elite who survive the La Masia crucible, with Bernal rapidly evolving into an absolute brick wall, radiating pure swagger and possession while simultaneously blanketing the gaps left behind by Dani Olmo. Seriously, go rewind the tape and watch the masterclass he put on against Copenhagen. The exact second his cleats touched the grass, the cows vanished, and the midfield morphed into an oasis of total control and absolute composure. He then walked right out and duplicated that exact same clinic against Atletico Madrid in the Copa del Rey. Honestly, if they had punched their ticket to the championship match, every major sports network on the planet would be screaming Marc Bernal's name. The media would be completely losing their minds over how this teenager stepped up to the big leagues and seamlessly filled the massive void left by an injured Pedri. He did not just stop at covering for Frenkie de Jong while he was on the treatment table. He literally snatched a permanent starting job for one of the biggest franchises in the world. Sure, Hansi Flick and the medical team are actively trying to pump the brakes on his minutes after that devastating injury. But make no mistake, this kid is a bona fide superstar. It is truly heartbreaking because the 2024 to 2025 campaign was primed to be his explosive arrival on the global stage. But tragedy struck in August of 2024, flipping the script completely during a brutal road clash against Rayo Vallecano. He did not even need the Miri results to confirm the nightmare. The realization hit him instantly on the pitch. Athletes instantly recognized that specific gut-wrenching pop in the knee, lying there on the turf deep into extra time. He had to watch his ultimate dream season violently evaporate right before his eyes. His squad felt the devastation immediately. Cubarsi and Olmo rushed over, burying their faces in their hands in sheer horror. At just 17 years old, he had barely scratched the surface of his first team debut. And just like that, merely 3 games into the grind, the curtain brutally fell. A shredded arc on the left knee, significant meniscus damage, and staring down the barrel of an agonizing 12-month rehab prison sentence. The most crushing part of it all, he was mere inches away from cementing his legacy. Barely a few months prior, the stars had aligned flawlessly. When Hansi Flick touched down as the new tactical mastermind in the summer of 2024, the man did his homework. Flick instantly demanded the scouting dossiers on every single prospect in the pipeline, particularly the heavy hitters tearing it up in Barca Athletic. And one specific name flashed in neon lights on every report: Marc Bernal. The kid walked through the doors of La Masia at just 6 years old. Entering that legendary crucible at such a young age is practically a guaranteed fast pass to becoming the next homegrown midfield titan. Coming up through the ranks, his sheer size and brute strength dwarfed his peers. But what truly left the coaching staff speechless was his jaw-dropping finesse in possession. He maneuvered with buttery smooth footwork, elite close-quarters control, and an absolutely lethal left boot. Usually, academy instructors stress out over undersized prospects getting bullied off the pitch. Bernal flipped that script entirely. He was an absolute tank who operated with razor-sharp precision and a genius-level soccer. That lethal hybrid package made him the ultimate standout from day one. There is this legendary untold story that perfectly captures his freakish talent. Back when he was barely 9 years old, he suited up as a ringer for a local squad called Gimnastic de Manresa in an under-10 showcase. The championship game arrived, and he absolutely dismantled Espanyol with a 3-goal masterpiece, walking away as the undisputed MVP of the entire competition. Stepping onto the field against older guys is a massive challenge on its own, but completely tearing them apart, that is a whole different level of greatness. Yet, his physical maturity was only half the story. His pure skill was light years beyond his peers, propelling a relentless rise through the ranks at the fabled La Masia Academy. Season after season, he tore through the developmental squads without breaking a sweat, a born competitor perpetually hungry for heavier burdens. By the time he hit 16, battling veterans was just his everyday routine. From that precise moment, his career trajectory went absolutely supernova. During the 2023 to 2024 campaign, Bernal transformed into the absolute heartbeat of the reserve squad. Barcelona Athletic, logging 31 total games and earning the starting nod in 27, he achieved something downright insane for a teenager battling grown men. He even buried a spectacular 2-goal performance during a brutal clash against Sesto River, etching his name into the history books as the youngest player to ever find the back of the net in the Spanish third tier. The era of calling him a mere prospect was officially over. This prodigy was dictating the tempo against grizzled veterans. Behind closed doors, the whispers among the coaching staff were turning into roars. Picture an imposing ice-cold defensive anchor with flawless footwork, stepping out of the academy to completely dominate seasoned professionals. Bernal commanded the geometry of the field, turning the chaotic game into a masterclass of pure simplicity. The terrifying truth was finally being spoken without hesitation. This phenomenon was the ultimate heir apparent to Sergio Busquets that the franchise had witnessed since the legend packed his bags. You do not throw that name around lightly in Catalonia. The front office had spent years desperately hunting for his ghost. Xavi begged for Zubimendi. Management briefly dreamed about landing Joshua Kimmich, yet brutal budget restrictions slammed the door shut every single time. Flashback to July 2023. President Laporta personally dropped Bernal's name while mapping out the long-term blueprint for the midfield. Rather than burning cash they did not have, the boss demanded they look inward and mine the gold hidden inside their own legendary academy. Rattling off a shortlist of elite teenage ball winners, he positioned the rising star right in the center of that conversation. Getting a public endorsement from the head honcho is monumental for any high schooler. However, Xavi refused to let the mounting pressure fast-track the kid onto the main roster prematurely. He kept grinding in the reserve leagues, but the landscape violently shifted in the summer of 2024 when Hansi Flick seized the reins as head coach. Armed with a track record of throwing rookies into the fire, the new manager instantly spotted undeniable superstar potential in the teenager. After intensely analyzing the training sessions and scrimmages, Flick had a revelation. Hunting the transfer market was a joke when the ultimate weapon was already in their armory. Keep in mind, massive of some tournaments like the Euros and Copa America delayed the return of the heavyweight starters. As a result, training camped into an absolute battleground for the youth prospects. Basically, an army of teenagers was carrying the workload. Most of those guys were just thrilled to share the grass. Not Bernal, though. This was his do-or-die moment to broadcast his lethal skill set, and he absolutely annihilated the opportunity. The head coach was instantly captivated, deployed in a double pivot alongside fellow homegrown talent Marc Casado. The kid operated like a 10-year veteran. He possessed ice in his veins when cornered, constantly demanding possession while scanning the battlefield like a radar. And once the ball was at his feet, his decision-making was absolutely lethal. Following an exhibition clash with Manchester City, even Pep Guardiola was forced to answer questions about the rising phenom. That specific soundbite set the entire football world on fire. From a pure athletic standpoint, he was an undeniable freak of nature, boasting an incredibly massive frame that dwarfed even Busquets. He brought serious physical intimidation, yet brute strength was barely scratching the surface of his true arsenal. His real superpower was his terrifying football ache, his spatial awareness, his pristine timing, and his supernatural ability to hit the brakes and dictate the tempo whenever the squad needed to breathe. Behind locker room doors, veterans raved about his elite mentality. He moved like a silent assassin, laser-focused and carrying the poise of a seasoned champion. That bulletproof mindset was exactly why the manager handed him the keys from day one. He even survived a brutal error against Monaco in a warm-up match without losing an ounce of the coach's faith. Flick stood by his guy. Then came the ultimate turning point, August 17th, 2024, barely a few months after he blew out 17 candles. The manager unleashed him in the starting rotation for the opening La Liga matchup in a hostile environment against Valencia. No sitting on the bench, no garbage time minutes. He was thrust directly into the starting 11, a 17-year-old homegrown product taking center stage on day one. This is the exact fantasy every kid in the system bleeds for. The craziest part, the rookie looked utterly unfazed under the brightest lights. Executing a brilliantly basic game plan, he connected on practically every single feed and single-handedly commanded the flow of the matchup. On the defensive side of the ball, he was an absolute machine, shutting down the passing lanes like a steel vault, instinctively anticipating every single threat. Watching him operate, you could not shake the ghostly presence of Busquets. It was that identical, chilling composure. The kid possessed a cheat code, reading plays 2 moves before anyone else. Handing the defensive anchor job to a high schooler was a massive gamble by the manager. But that kid paid out the jackpot with a cinematic debut. To dial up the magic, he was stepping onto the battlefield alongside his childhood brothers from the training grounds. Yamal was already torching defenders on the perimeter. Marc Cubarsi was locking down the defensive trenches. It signaled a terrifying new dynasty of homegrown phenoms ready to take over. Following that masterclass, the coach kept him locked in the lineup for a gritty 2-1 victory against Athletic Club. The fanbase lost its collective mind. The academy factory had just produced another absolute monster, a towering, razor-sharp midfield enforcer orchestrating the chaos. So at just 17 years old, the legend of a new era was officially born, echoing the exact same magic of those early Busquets glory days. Then, the Rayo Vallecano game like a freight train, everything just completely derailed. Deep into the final moments, Bernal collapsed to the turf, shattered. Initially, nobody panicked. It seemed like a routine knock. The kind of tough kid just walks off. The reality, though an absolute nightmare. The scans confirmed the ultimate tragedy. For any rising star, his left anterior cruciate ligament was totally shredded, taking the outer meniscus down with it. Just like that, his phenomenal breakout campaign flatlined at the starting gate. 1 second, he is commanding the pitch in Spain's top flight. The next, he is staring down the barrel of a scalpel in a grueling, agonizing recovery. The Barcelona faithful were crushed. The summer was not even over, yet the prodigy, who single-handedly aimed midfield, was officially raised from the roster for the foreseeable future. Blowing out a knee like that demands 9 to 12 agonizing months off the grass. For a kid barely out of puberty, it is a devastating mental blow. Adding insult to injury, his squad forged ahead and assembled an absolute masterclass of a 2024-2025 campaign, guided by Hansi Flick. They ruled Spanish soccer with an iron fist. They snatched the league crown, hosted the King's Cup, and took home the Super Cup hardware. A flawless domestic sweep proved the Titans were officially resurrected, yet the ultimate prize slipped through their fingers. The European crown. They bulldozed their way deep into the continental bracket, only to suffer a gut-wrenching overtime elimination against Inter Milan. It was a brutal, razor-thin heartbreak. Flick engineered a high-octane, relentless offensive machine all year, though pundits pointed out they constantly left the back door wide open. Looking in the rearview mirror, you have to wonder if they had that ice-cold anchor shielding the defense. Would those chaotic, do-or-die moments have ended differently? The Phenom vanished from the stadium lights, but his manager never forgot about him for a second. The boss drew a line in the sand. This kid remained his undisputed defensive linchpin of tomorrow. He even showed up at the boys' hospital bedside post-operation. Word from sports media outlets revealed he gifted the boy a gritty psychological survival guideline titled Overcome Your Limits. Scrawled on the inside jacket was an intimate, heavy-hitting note. It reminded the prodigy that time was heavily on his side. It emphasized that this horrific roadblock would not dent the massive superstar trajectory the franchise still envisioned for him. Those words were a lifeline. The ensuing dark months tested his sanity. He later confessed to experiencing soul-crushing days where he craved nothing but sleep, just to numb the endless physical therapy and psychological warfare. He practically moved in the academy headquarters during the darkest stretches, wrapped tight in the organization's as protective embrace. For the initial 6 weeks, he was stranded in a local hotel, completely dependent on his mom just to survive the day. Putting on clothes, moving across the room. Every tiny action required a crutch, but the tide slowly turned. He dragged himself to training, day in and day out. He forged absolute iron into his frame. His chest and shoulders bulked up massively, and he even shot up a couple of centimeters in height. But the real transformation was between his ears, recognizing that undeniable grit. The front office locked him down through 2026, slapping a jaw-dropping €500 million price tag on his head to ward off predators. The statement was deafening. They still saw a king out on the pitch, though the game had mercilessly kept spinning without him. Young guns snatched the spotlight, while veteran playmakers exploded back onto the scene, playing out of their minds. Away from the cameras, the manager constantly fed his sidelined warrior the exact same fuel. Take your time, tune out the noise. His moment would come naturally. While out of the limelight, the kid lived in the weight room, shredding his old physique. The fragile boy vanished, replaced by sheer mass. He packed on raw, unadulterated horsepower. By the time the cameras caught him again, he looked like an absolute gladiator. As the 2025-2026 kickoff loomed, the hype train roared back to life. The entire soccer universe was watching his every step. Then, in the heat of August 2025, 346 agonizing days later, the medical staff finally cut him loose. Getting the green light was monumental. Yet the front office kept him on a tight leash. The coaching staff practically bubble-wrapped his integration. Specialists constantly hammered home that young knees demand nearly a full calendar year before handling a light warfare. The franchise played the long game, Yet, the inevitable cinematic climax, the whole City 100, finally presented itself. The grand, highly anticipated resurrection of their homegrown star. He stepped back into the trenches on September 14, 2025. Nearly 13 grueling months had passed since that devastating snap. The kid later swore he was grinning from ear to ear under the stadium lights, and you could feel that electric energy. The demons of doubt were dead. Pure euphoria took the wheel. Unbelievably, the script got sweeter. Mere seconds after his cleats hit the grass, he intercepted a loose ball and immediately locked onto his elite, slicing through the backline. He threaded an absolute laser through the chaos, hitting his target perfectly in stride for a ruthless finish. 5 minutes into his second life on the pitch, he banked an assist. Hollywood could not have drafted a better climax. The organization treated the moment like an absolute blockbuster. Their media machine went nuclear, flooding timelines with tributes to his hellish road back. And that jaw-dropping dime he dropped, the prodigy owned the spotlight, acknowledging the magic in the air, while coldly stating that this was merely day one of his true legacy. The grind never stops. One thing is undeniable, though he is the undisputed master key to this legendary engine room. Chasing the ghosts of that legendary Xavi, Iniesta and Busquets era, we are absolutely heading toward a terrifying new trio with him anchoring Pedri and Gavi, even throwing De Jong into the mix. Having a deep line playmaker this lethal unlocks the entire tactical playbook. The squad can instantly revert to their vintage 4-4-3-3 formation in today's hyper-aggressive game. A maestro who completely neutralizes high pressure, casually bends time, and dictates the entire rhythm is an absolute unicorn. That specific flavor of genius defined their old guard for over 10 years. Now, this battle-tested kid is proving he possesses that exact same ice-cold pulse to run the show. Some guys just play the sport, others step onto the grass and instantly turn every single teammate into an absolute killer. Watching him go to war alongside the exact same guys he grew up with is pure cinematic gloaming. Lavi, Baldi, Cubarsi. We are not just looking at a roster here. This is a brotherhood forged in the academy fires, backed by an organization that bets everything on homegrown youth. The entire Barcelona revolves around their young prodigies straight into the fire. Yet, even inside a locker room packed elite phenoms, Bernal is a completely different animal. If you want to witness the terrifying potential of this new empire, you need to hit play on this tape right now.